Hello everyone! In this video we are going to pick up right where we left off in the previous part and click on the delete button. Cool, we get an alert that says you clicked delete. And I can try the button down here and it does the same thing. Excellent. So now we can finally get to the entire point of this lesson, which is how can we communicate with WordPress from the front end? When we click this button, how can we tell WordPress to delete a specific post? Well, the answer has to do with the REST API. Let me show you what I mean. So right now, follow along with me. In a new browser tab, go ahead and visit your home page or the root of your URL. So in my case, fictionaluniversity.dev. And then remember, at the end of the URL, we can add on /wp/json/wp/v2. And then if we wanted to get the 10 most recent blog posts, we can just say posts. Right? And that's going to give us the raw JSON data for those blog posts. Or at the end of the URL, we could say pages to get that post type instead. Or better yet, instead of pages, we could say note. Not notes, but just note. And that's going to give us the 10 most recent note posts. The reason we are able to do this is because in our previous lesson, back in our MU plugins folder, remember that when we registered the note post type, we included show in REST equals true. So this means that all of the default REST API URL behaviors are in place for the note post type. So this URL is going to give me the 10 most recent notes, or if I wanted to retrieve just one specific note, I just need to know the ID number of that post. So for example, this is JSON data for 2 note posts, right? Math lecture and biology lecture. But you can see that the first property is ID 137. On your website, it will have a different ID number. But if you just take note of that number and then up in your address bar, add on a slash and then type in that number, well, now you're only going to get raw JSON data for that one specific post with that ID. Now, you might be scratching your head and saying, Brad, what does this have to do with being able to delete a post? And that's a fair question, but I think everything's going to make sense when I let you know that there are different types of requests. So for example, when our web browser visits this URL that we see in the address bar, when you type in an address and then push enter, your web browser is sending out a GET request. We're telling the WordPress server, hey, we want to get or receive information. However, there are other types of requests. So for example, if instead of wanting to retrieve information about the post with this ID, if instead we wanted to update this post with new content and send that to the server, well, we can send a request to this exact same URL, only instead of a GET request, we would send a POST request. Or better yet, if we wanted to delete the post with this ID number, we would send a request to the same exact URL, only instead of a GET or POST request, we would send a delete request. Now there are several other types of requests, but when it comes to working with the WordPress REST API, those are the big 3. A GET request, a POST request, and a delete request. Now while it's true that if you just type in a URL in your address bar and push enter, that's going to send out a GET request, and there's not much we can do about that. The beauty is that you and I are programmers. And back in our JavaScript, it is very easy to send out different types of requests. So right now, all we need to do within our delete note method is learn how to send a delete request to the right API URL. So let's delete the test alert message. And up until this point in the course, whenever we wanted to send a request to a URL from within our JavaScript, we used the jQuery tool named getJSON. However, as you can see from the very name of that method, that only makes sense if you want to send a GET request. And right now, we don't want to send a GET request, we want to send a delete request. So let's delete this. And instead, let's use a jQuery tool named Ajax. The Ajax method is a great option when you want to be able to control what type of request you're sending. Within its parentheses, let's include a pair of curly brackets to create a JavaScript object. And then within the curly brackets, I like to drop down to a new line. And we just want to give this Ajax method a few things. So first we give it a property named URL, and let's just set it to X as a temporary placeholder. Okay, then we also give it a type, and this would be what type of request you want to send. Is it a GET, POST, or DELETE request? In our case, we know that we want a delete request, so just single quotes and then all caps delete. Okay, include a comma and drop down again. We also want to provide a property named success. And this is where we provide a function that we want to run if the request is successful. For now, let's just include a placeholder X. And then we also give it a property named error. And again, that's just a function that will run if the request fails. Okay, now let's go through these one by one and start replacing the X placeholders. So first, what is the URL that we want to send a request to? And that would just be a URL very similar to this. Now, in order to avoid having to type out your full root domain, back in our code, we can delete this placeholder X and just say universitydata.root URL. This is a property that we set up many lessons ago. If you're scratching your head and you can't remember when we created this, go ahead and view the source for the front end of your website, and then press Control F or Command F to perform a search, and just search for university data. And I think that will jog your memory. Basically, this just contains the root part of our URL so that our code can be flexible here. And after that root part of our domain, let's add on, and then quotes, and let's say /wp JSON /wp /v2 /note. And then eventually we want the number that comes here to be dynamic, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, we can go ahead and hard code a number just to test things out. Now in my case, I'm going to hard code this to 137 because I know that's my ID for math lecture number 1, but in your case, you're going to need to use a different number. In your WordPress installation, your first note post almost certainly has a different ID. So in order to find the number of your first note post, just go to this REST API URL, wp-json wp-v2 note, and then just grab the first ID number that you see right here. Cool. So for now, let's just hard code this. I will say 137. Okay, we've already specified that this is a delete request. Now let's fill out the success and error functions. So let's get rid of this X and just create an anonymous inline function. We can actually create an ES6 arrow function with parentheses, =, curly brackets. Within the curly brackets, I like to drop down. And if the request is successful, let's just log out to the console. So console.log, and let's say congrats. And also right below that, let's also log out the WordPress server response. So console.log response. And in order to log out the server response, we need to pass this function that as a parameter. So within these parentheses, just say response. Okay, and let's do something very similar for our error function. So if the request fails, let's get rid of the X and include an ES6 arrow function. Within the curly brackets, drop down, and I'm just going to paste these two lines, copy and paste. Instead of congrats, I will say sorry. And within these parentheses, be sure to include a parameter name. Okay, so now whether our request succeeds or fails, either way, in the developer console, we should see a custom message and then the official response from WordPress. So let's go ahead and save this, and then over on the front end, let's be sure to open up our developer console. So click anywhere and choose Inspect, and then click on the Console tab. Okay, now if I click the Delete button and check the console, we see several things. So first of all, a big red error message that says unauthorized, then our custom sorry message, and then this is the official response from WordPress. So you can click on that to expand it. So we can see these different messages. Sorry, you are not allowed to delete this post. And down here we just see unauthorized. Now, even though our request clearly failed and we see all of these different error messages, we should actually be happy. Because if what we just attempted actually worked, that would mean WordPress is incredibly insecure. And it would mean that anyone with an internet connection could delete any piece of content on any WordPress website. So if we want to be able to delete a post, we need to prove to WordPress that we are actually logged in and that we have permission to do that. And the way that we do that, if we jump back to our JavaScript, is when we send out the URL request, we want to include with it a little piece of secret data called a nonce. Nonce stands for a number used once or number once. Now, whenever you successfully log into your WordPress account, WordPress can generate a nonce for you. So let me show you how to set this up. Let's dive into our functions.php file, and let's scroll down until we find our function that is named University Files. And towards the bottom of this function, we've used something named WP Localize Script. Now, we've already used this once to generate our root URL that you can find if you view the source for the page. So check this out. I just want to generate another property. So at the end of this line, let's include a comma, and we could make up whatever name we want, but let's just say nonce, and set it to equal, and then there's a WordPress function named WP create nonce. And within the parentheses, let's just say WP rest. So with this in place, now whenever we successfully log into WordPress, if we check the view source of the page, there will be a secret property named nonce that equals a randomly generated number that WordPress creates just for our user session. So let's save this, and if we jump back to the front end, and if you refresh and then view the page source, if you search for university data, now in addition to root URL, we also have this property named nonce, and there's my randomly generated number. So we just need to pass this number along within our JavaScript, and then WordPress can trust us. So back in our JavaScript, within the Ajax method, maybe right before the URL property, let's add a new line and say before send, and let's set this to equal an arrow function. So parentheses equal greater than, curly brackets. Okay, now within the parentheses, we can make up a parameter name. I'm going to say XHR, and then within the function, we can target that parameter to modify the request that jQuery is going to send out. All modern browsers have a method named setRequestHeader, and this is how you can pass along a little bit of extra information with your request. Now, the first argument needs to perfectly match what WordPress is going to be on the lookout for, and that is x-wp-nonce. WordPress will be looking for this exact name, and then we just say comma, and then we just pass it the secret number. So university data.nonce, right? That's the property that we just added to the HTML of our page. Okay, and before I save this, I just noticed a typo. After the closing curly bracket for before send, right here, you want to be sure to include a comma. Okay, so if I save that, and then refresh and try to click delete again, now if I check the console, we see congratulations. And then WordPress responds with information about the post that we deleted. Now obviously we didn't tell our JavaScript to remove that from the page, but if you refresh the page manually, we see that my math lecture note is gone. Cool, now that's going to bring this lesson to a close. In our next lesson, we will adjust our UI so that it actually makes sense. Right, so that if you successfully delete a post, it should visually remove that from the page in real time, like a nice single-page application. So let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next lesson.